Now, I'm sorry to bring this name to your attention if it's not already been brought to your attention, but today we're talking about Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace is on a mission to completely bar trans people from using the bathroom that matches their gender identity on Capitol Hill. There are so many things to be concerned about: inflation, people's wages, all of these things are concerning to everybody else. But no, Nancy Mace, a member of the House of Representatives, is focusing on trans people using the bathroom again. This conversation, I thought, died in like 2018. Apparently it hasn't. We're still here, and these dumb are still here as well. Now, first and foremost, I will bring attention to this hilarious tweet. It is time we talk a little bit about the quote-unquote fascist phenotype, or at least the conservative phenotype, because why do they all look like this? That's a good question. They all have, like, eerie teeth, too much gums, foreheads that are way too large. It's almost like if you're an ugly-looking ghoul like this, you're pretty much destined to be a conservative. Anyway, she has been on a massive quest to bar, to my knowledge, the only trans person on Capitol Hill from just using the women's bathroom. Republican Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina has introduced legislation that would ban transgender women from using facilities on federal property, like bathrooms and locker rooms, that do not correspond with the sex they were assigned at birth. Okay, so it would follow it was a follow-up to a similar measure the Congresswoman introduced on Monday. That was limited to facilities on the House side of the U.S. Capitol. And the move comes, listen to this. This is how you know that it's primarily fueled by discrimination and bigotry, and it's not really fueled by a genuine and authentic care for women. This move by Nancy Mace comes just 2 weeks after Sarah McBride became the first openly transgender person elected to Congress. So she's never, let me get this straight. Nancy Mace never gave a single fucking shit about women's safety until a trans person shows up. Can they be any more obvious? Could this be any more transparent? That clearly their concern is not about women, but far more about just restricting trans people and being bigoted towards trans people? And oddly enough, Sarah McBride, the first transgender person elected, said that I'm not here to fight about bathrooms. I'm here to fight for Delawareans and to bring down costs facing families, which on its surface at first, I feel like that kind of seems yikesy, like stand up for yourself, holy shit. But then on the flip side, I think that this is going to ultimately be better, especially optically. Now you have Nancy Mace, the Republican, who's going crazy just about trans people existing. And then you have the trans person who's just like, I don't really care to fight about this. Like, whatevs, it's fine. I'm really focused on the real issues right now. It ends up making Nancy Mace look like the lunatic that she is. Sarah McBride isn't even taking the bait. And in my opinion, that's a pretty strong move. And then, when asked if McBride's arrival was the catalyst for Mace's decision, Mace was clear. Yes, and absolutely, and then some, she said. Okay, so she's not even hiding it anymore. I gotta be honest, I'm not that surprised that a white Southern woman would be this excited about getting to implement segregation. And this is why ultimately I think Sarah McBride's response, although, like I said, on the surface, it seems like she's not really standing up for herself, I think is ultimately a baller move. I mean, even right here, she says, quote, we should be focused on bringing down the cost of housing, healthcare, and childcare, not manufacturing culture wars. But this still hasn't stopped Nancy Mace from continuing her insane crusade. In the last 72 hours, she posted 326 times about bathrooms. For somebody this full of shit, I'm not that surprised she's this fucking obsessed with bathrooms. But still, I mean, come on. That's concerning. This is like, what in the Pepto-Bismol are you doing? This is really ironic too. Nancy Mace says, quote, we support gay marriage and voted for the Respect for Marriage Act twice. However, if you think protecting women is discrimination, you are the problem. This is literally exactly what conservatives said before, about gay marriage. Hey, we support people's freedoms, but like, if you think that me protecting the family unit is discrimination, you're a problem. It was the exact same logic. And there have been a couple tweets that she's made that I thought we would look at before going into a bit of an interview. One of the best things that I've seen, though, is the fact that a bunch of conservatives can no longer tell the difference when it comes to cis women versus trans women. Libs of TikTok posts about Nancy Mace introducing a measure to ban men, quote unquote, from women's bathrooms on Capitol Hill. And look at the comments. Which one is the real woman? They both look like men. They're so transphobic that now they're literally attacking, quote unquote, real women. It's hilarious to me. Nancy Mace also tweeted this just yesterday.
So what is this?
This says you can't erase us, Nancy. Well, then you shouldn't try to erase women. I have to say, for any man that wants to be in a woman's restroom, bathroom, dressing room, locker room, absolutely not.
Okay, so first and foremost, I know that it's kind of corny to bring up this quote, and when I was younger, I thought it was corny, but now I see it more and more and more, and it is very simple. It is, to those that are privileged, equality feels like discrimination. For her to say that allowing trans women to use the bathroom that matches their gender identity is somehow erasing women is absolutely fucking ludicrous. That doesn't make any sense. Trans people are asking to be included. You are fighting to exclude. They are not trying to erase anybody. If anything, you are far more on the lines of trying to erase somebody. So she pulls this down and then says absolutely not, and then throws it in the trash. But like, why? Are there any reasons for this? Of course not, because conservatives are fucking stupid, and that means that they base most of their opinions on ignorance and fear. They're afraid because it sounds spooky, and that's pretty much where it ends. For them, they hear man in woman's bathroom. Oh, listen, do you think that if there's a creepy fucking guy who wants to go and abuse women in a women's bathroom, that he's gonna stop at the door when he sees the sign that says women only? That's not going to happen. Of course not. Somebody with the intent of inflicting harm on another person and victimizing another person is going to try and follow through on those abhorrent desires, regardless if there's a sign on the door that says women's bathroom or not. And it's actually hilarious because conservatives talk a lot about gun control. And they say, oh, really, you think that people with guns are just going to walk over to try to do a school shooting and they're going to see gun-free zone and be like, oh, well, guess it's time for me to go home. Of course not, idiot. But meanwhile, conservatives literally think that rapists will just see a sign and be like, oh, okay, well, I better be heading off now. Ta-ta. And then if they introduce the policy to allow trans people in, now all of a sudden the rapist is going to be like, perfect. Now I can abuse somebody. It would still be a crime, whether they were trans, cis, whether they abused another woman, whether they abused another man. Furthermore, when you actually look at how a lot of the trans people present nowadays, it also would be fucking ridiculous. I don't want somebody like Blair White in the men's bathroom, and I don't think any women would be very comfortable with somebody like Buck Angel in the women's bathroom. It doesn't make any sense anymore. And it's obvious that these people are just basing their whole opinion on fear-mongering, and that's it. People like Nancy Mace want other people to think that women are somehow in danger by the existence of trans people. This is not true. What is true, however, is that trans people, when forced to use the bathroom that only matches their biology, doesn't even correspond with their presented gender identity, those people are more likely to be victimized. So now you have a group of people that by excluding them, they are victimized. But if you included them, you would not be victimized. Therefore, it is only the others that are suffering, and you yourself are once again excluding for no reason. So according to Harvard School of Public Health, transgender teens with restricted bathroom access were at a higher risk of sexual assault. transgender and non-binary teens face greater risk of sexual assault in schools that prevent them from using bathrooms or locker rooms consistent with their gender identity, according to a recent study. Researchers looked at data from a survey of nearly 3,700 U.S. teens aged 13 to 17. The study found that 36% of transgender or gender non-binary students with restricted bathroom or locker room access reported being sexually assaulted in the last 12 months. Of all the students surveyed, 1 out of every 4, or 25%, reported being a victim of sexual assault in the past year. Unfortunately, kids' access to restrooms and locker rooms has become very politicized in some communities. So, the cis students had a 25.9% report rate of sexual assault in the past 12 months. The trans people with the restricted bathrooms had a reported 36% of sexual assault in the last 12 months. The trans people having their bathroom access restricted tends to victimize the trans people. But what happens when trans people just use the bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity? Data come from public record requests of criminal incident reports related to assault, sex crimes, and voyeurism in public restrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms to measure safety and privacy violations in these spaces. And this is looking at specific spaces where there are laws that are passed, which are called gender identity inclusive public accommodations. So bathrooms that include trans people, that's all that's talking about. It looked at those spaces specifically. The study finds that the passage of those laws is not related to the number of frequency of criminal incidences in these spaces. Additionally, the study finds that reports of privacy and safety violations in public restrooms, locker rooms, and changing rooms are exceedingly rare. This study provides evidence that fears of increased safety and privacy violations as a result of non-discrimination laws are not empirically grounded. So that's just a little bit of the drama. Now we're going to sit down and listen to her talk with probably one of the worst people around, Michael Knowles. That's right, Nancy Mace, 2 days ago sat down with Michael fucking Knowles to further talk about her fear-mongering crusade.
We actually get to speak to the woman who is leading the charge to defend reality and the rights of women. That would be Congressman Nancy Mace. Representative Mace.
Why don't we start talking more about the rights of people? Like, I think that everybody would agree that people generally have a right to not be assaulted. So therefore, trans people deserve that right as well. So if restricting trans people's bathroom access leads to more assaults, and we all agree that everybody has a right to not be assaulted, then why don't we include trans people? You see, they're almost fully relying on this woman part of their argument. And the minute that you just step back and say, well, what about people's rights? It pretty much all crumbles.
Yes, sir. And thank you for talking about this really important topic. Do women have rights or not is the question at the end of the day. And it needs to be answered.
It's a simple question. I was hoping that all of your colleagues in the Republican conference would leap at this and say, this is so obvious.
This is such an obvious Mott and Bailey. It's embarrassing. He's literally like, they both have such a fucking extreme and ridiculous opinion, but they're padding it a certain way. So they're like, so, do you believe that women deserve rights? Yeah, of course. But women deserving rights does not mean restricting trans people from accessing the bathroom that matches their gender identity when the trans people pose no risk to the cis women in that bathroom.
As a matter of justice, women deserve their own bathrooms. Even as a matter of politics, the vast majority of Americans are on board with reality on this issue. And yet, so far, you are basically the lone voice. So please tell me a little bit, what is this resolution you are proposing and what are the next steps?
Well, I filed a resolution this week that would ban biological men from women's private spaces. So that would be the bathroom, changing.
How are you going to confirm? That's going to be my first question, right? There are trans people that pass exceptionally well. Even Sarah McBride, the lady that's fighting with Nancy Mace, looks like a woman to me. If you're going to enforce this, how is it going to be enforced? Are you going to check? Are you going to be like, hold up, let me see your biology? Is that going to be the only way?
So that would be the bathroom, changing rooms, locker rooms up here on Capitol Hill. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm also filing a bill that we're giving you exclusive copy to and copy with that would ban ban biological men from women's restrooms and women's private spaces and every federal property across the entire country. So I'm going to do everything I can to protect women and girls here on the Hill, but also all across the
It would make a hell of a lot more sense to just continue allowing trans people to use the bathrooms on public facilities.
But also all across the nation. I mean, this question needs to be answered. Do women have rights or not? Are we going to allow these men to bully us into submission? And I say, no more. I'm done with this. I mean, I was built for tough. There's no amount of bullying and threats on my life that they've made this week that's going to stop me from this. And I was the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. I was built for tough, and I am not going to back down, and I'm urging my colleagues to join me in this fight. This is common sense. This isn't controversial.
So you mentioned this is an exclusive. Thank you for breaking the news here. You're not merely introducing a resolution into the House to say, look, female members of Congress get to have their own bathrooms. You're going further to say we're gonna defend reality and the rights of women on all federal properties. My first take is, wow, that's so ambitious and radical. And then I have to correct myself. I say, wait a second. This is the way things always were. This is just common sense. But I guess common sense isn't so common right now.
Yeah, because listen to his common sense. That's super fucking embarrassing. And this guy sounds like the common retard. Common sense. This is how it's always been. I don't give a fuck. Just if this is how things have always been. Why do conservatives bring this up as if this holds any weight or meaning whatsoever? For a long time, it had just always been that we thought Zeus was responsible for lightning, or that we thought slavery was okay, or that we thought God was real. We always thought stupid shit for a long time. Just because it used to be like this doesn't mean that the way it used to be was good. It's so painfully obvious to me, and yet it just works for conservatives because they're so low IQ.
Well, common sense is out the window. There are literally members of Congress today that are saying I'm a bigot and that I'm a bully because I'm defending my right to privacy. Now, a lot of people may not know I'm a survivor of rape. I was raped at the age of 16. I'm also a survivor of domestic abuse and sexual abuse. And so I'm absolutely triggered by the idea.
Luckily for me, I don't actually give very much shit about anybody's victim status. Nancy Mace, I'm very sorry that happened to you, of course. However, ultimately, I don't give a fuck because it doesn't matter and it has absolutely no weight here. People try to do this pretty frequently, even when I get in other drama too, about all kinds of things really. People will say, well, I was a victim of this thing, so therefore I know best. I'm sorry, Nancy Mace, if you were a victim of that. That's horrible, like I said. However, being a victim of that doesn't mean that you are now an expert on bathroom policies. I mean, you've already neglected to even bring up any data. You obviously have neglected to do any research into the data, because if you did, you'd see that there's really nothing to be afraid of. And then you would see that since trans people don't pose any more risk to cis people, then you bringing up the fact that you were assaulted in the past, as horrible as that is, it's completely irrelevant.
A man's genitalia, being in my bathroom or a locker room or a space where I'm changing, that is a hard pass for me, and it will come to throat.
Does she know how bathrooms work? Does she think that when you walk into bathrooms, you're just seeing everybody's genitalia? Then are you triggered being around any male? Like, what's the significance of the bathroom? You're around males, you're around male genitalia pretty frequently. But again, it just shows how much her mind is in the fucking gutter. It's like, it's creepy for me to even like say it like that, but yet that's literally how she's approaching this subject.
I'm absolutely triggered by the idea that women don't have rights in this country, and I'm going to make sure that I protect them. And this shouldn't be controversial. I came from.
You're a fucking U.S. You're a member of the House of Representatives, and you're over here saying women don't have rights because you can't be a fucking bigoted piece of shit towards trans people.
You're the perfect champion for this issue because, well, you're a woman, despite the modern confusion. But two, you come from a purple district. You are not the most far right-wing representative by any stretch. You're willing to reach across the aisle and work with people. As you say, you were the victim of sexual violence yourself, so you know the consequences of blurring these boundaries and taking away women's private spaces. This really is scandalous to me. I know that politics, there are all sorts of crazy fights that happen, but it is really scandalous.
I can't believe, it's just so funny that conservatives for so long shat all over identity politics and playing the victim card. And now we are literally seeing somebody, along with Michael Knowles, say, well, you're a woman, I'm a woman, doing the identity politics, and then saying, because I'm a victim and I'm a woman, that makes me right. And conservatives are just gobbling it up like it's Thanksgiving Day.
To me that in the year of our Lord 2024, women are being told, hey, if you insist on having your private spaces that you've had for time immemorial, if you insist on not being in vulnerable positions in front of men, that you're somehow a bigot. I mean, what do you say to these colleagues
What do you
of
mean vulnerable positions in front of men? What? Do you think that people are like just peeing in like weird, scandalous positions where everybody can see them? Again, I don't think conservatives know what public bathrooms are.
Well, I can't say what I want to say because it'd be a 4-letter word. To be frank, I went to the military college and I use very colorful language. It's not okay because I'm literally being bullied and they're trying to bully me into submission. And it's not going to work. This is a fight. I mean, if Democrats want to die on this hill not once but twice, they didn't learn from the election 2 weeks ago. This women's issues were on the ballot.
Also, by the way, you can prepare yourselves. We've already been experiencing this. This is probably going to be their little talking point, maybe even for the next 4 years. Every time the left does anything or says anything that the right doesn't agree with, they're going to say, this is why you lost the election. Even though it's like, no, not really.
I mean, this stuff is crazy. And, we have to draw a big fat red line in the sand and say no more because my rights are worth fighting for. Your daughters, my daughter's rights are worth fighting for.
You're not fighting for a right. You're fighting to exclude.
On this hill.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to allow it. And this is just the start. To see the left just become totally unhinged means that we're winning. They're now, not only they're threatening to kill me, but, now they're making all these personal smears and taking shots at me, and I'm like, bring it. I'm not going to go quietly in the night. I'm just going to double down on a really important issue for women all across the country because conservatives and Republicans, we're going to be the party that protects women. It ain't going to be the left. It's going to be conservative women protecting women across the country.
That's right. Certain issues, tax rates, you can have
this
a middle.
This is just so fucking embarrassing and pathetic. I mean, literally, these were the same kind of arguments made by white feminists when they wanted to keep black women out of their white women's spaces. Same kind of arguments. So basically, she's fighting to exclude trans people, even though trans people pose absolutely no risk to cis women. And even though there's literally only one trans person on Capitol Hill right now, and she's doing all of this stupid crusade, all of this dumb bigotry. Why? She's masking it behind, because I want to protect women, guys. I care about women. All you care about is using women to virtue signal and use as a political pawn to further boost yourself up. And if you don't believe me on that, even Nancy Mace's former colleagues have spoken out about how she's pretty fucking fake. Nancy Mace's former aide rips her anti-trans bill as thirsty ploy to get on Fox News. She says, quote, if you think this bill is about protecting women and not simply a ploy to get on Fox News, you've been fooled. Natalie Johnson, who served as Mace's director of communications in 2021, posted on X in response to Mace's bill. So this tweet's getting sent out. I don't want to see your junk in my bathroom. Again, how many people's junk are you seeing in the bathroom? Are you just, maybe Nancy Mace is actually a creepy perv. Nancy Mace is nothing but a clout-hungry demon who is now using the trans issue that's been beaten to death once again to garner more brownie points. It's cringy, it's pathetic, but it's really nothing short of what I would expect from a Republican. If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.